Where's the scally cap, Lebowski? I want that scally cap, Lebowski. Bunny says you're good for it. Here it is. This is the Big Lebowski by Boston Scally Company. This is a single panel, multicolored sweater patchwork wool blend cap. In Boston Scally's own words, this cap is crafted for comfort and character. It's perfect from bowling alleys to backyard hangouts, made for those who take life one white Russian at a time. Here is the cap in hand. This is the Big Lebowski by the Boston Scally Company, and this cap has a lot going on. It is, of course, based on the film by the Coen brothers, a late 90s movie, 98 I believe, that was called The Big Lebowski, starring Jeff Bridges, and it has since become a huge cult classic. This film, I have never been a giant fan of this film. It's just a little overly vulgar for me, and just even objectively, I feel like it's a little overrated. I do think it's funny in some parts. I'll give it that. I think it has some funny moments, but never been quite my cup of tea. But I do see why people enjoy it, and why it did gain a very devoted cult following, because it is a very interesting movie for sure. But this cap, when I saw it, I really liked it because I am drawn to retro-looking caps from the Boston Scally Company. This is, of course, another one of their collabs. They do so many thematic collaborations. We've had Jaws a lot from the Nightmare series, the Popeye, so many. That they're getting hard to remember at this point. There's been so many collabs, but if you're a fan of a particular movie, it's getting more and more likely that Boston Scally has probably made a cap based on that movie. So I think it's just really cool that they do that, because there's not a lot of other cap companies out there. Actually, there's not any really that I know of that are doing that. So I think that's really cool. And once they showed this on their social media site, I thought this one's going to go pretty quickly. Even though it was getting a little bit of hate on the social media, as the more interesting looking caps do at times. But it sold really fast. This cap also came with a pin set that I believe sold out within an hour or so, but the cap sold out in a couple of days. I don't even know if it was 2 days. This cap was gone. Of course, the unfortunate part of that is that now the last time I looked was a couple of days ago, since this was sold out, that there are, I believe, when I did look, there were about 22 listings for this cap. So, you know, people buy these Boston Scally caps and they put them on the secondary market on eBay and things like that. A real shame, I think, because this is a great cap, and I don't know. I know people have to make a living, but I've just always found that a little sleazy. But if you do it, hey, I've probably bought from you, so who am I to talk? So I'm probably one of your customers with one of the caps. So you got me. So I hope it feels good. So it probably does. So can't blame people for doing that. It's just kind of a shame that's what happens with some of these more coveted caps. But the good thing is, it's not like these caps sell out right away. So, you know, if you are keeping an eye on Boston Scally, these caps come, you know, as no surprise as to what's coming out. So, in their defense, I think the seller's defense, you do have ample time, almost all the time, to get these caps. So, I don't think that's a huge deal, but I do think it's worth mentioning. But getting to the cap, look at these colors. Look at that color pattern. And it's so cool because, as you see here, I'll show a picture here of, he's called the dude, the Lebowski in the film, if you don't know. So it's so interesting because you see so many of these colors. This was the rug from the movie. Then you have this color, the shirt he's wearing, his pants here, and the sweater that he wears for most of the movie. So that is all represented very well on this cap. And on the inside, you do have the dude himself. And I really like that purple on the inside. That's a nice touch. And the brim on this cap is also really nice. I've said it over and over countless times, but I love when the brim stands out from the colors surrounding it on the cap, and that is the case here. This is a pretty warm cap. I don't think you'd be wearing this out in the summer. Probably not. You would get warm pretty quickly. This is a very, very warm cap. So I did say that the pin set did sell out really quickly on Boston Scally's site. I actually didn't end up putting a pin on this cap. I thought the pins were okay. They're pretty representative of the movie, but I don't know. I wasn't sold on them. I did get them just because, I don't know, I thought maybe I eventually will. But without further ado, here they are. So you do have, they're at the bowling alley for a lot of this movie. So you do see there the bowling ball and the pins, the dude's glasses. He drinks the White Russian throughout most of the movie, and then you have the milk as well, which is a funny part of the movie. So I think it's a decent pin set. I'm not exactly sure what else they could have done with the pin set. So no fault to Boston Scally there. It just really wasn't, I just wasn't sold on the pin set. If I do put a pin on there from that pin set, it'll probably be the glasses. I just think maybe the glasses would look kind of cool right there. But I may not do it just because I think this cap looks so cool the way that it is. It looks so 70s, especially with this back part, the dude's rug, you know, the colors there. That just looks great. I almost just wish the whole cap was that. I would have been fine with that. I get that, you know, probably a lot of people wouldn't have wanted that. And that's really kind of my only criticism with this cap, is that I think they used all of the more interesting colors. Maybe it's aside from this, because this does go around the sides and on the front. But you see, you have this pattern here that's so interesting looking. It's such a cool pattern. And then, of course, that pattern there. They're so great, but they're both on the back of the cap. So I kind of wish that maybe at least this part or this part was one of these colors or one of these patterns, that there or this. Maybe switched up a little. Granted, I really like the way it looks from the side. So, you know, I'm sure Boston Scally, you know, they sketched it out, they tried it out, you know, patterns on, I'm sure they did on all sides to see what looked the best. But if I did have one little criticism, that would probably be it for me, just because, I don't know, I like the caps to be, just wild sometimes. And if you're going to put these patterns on a cap anyways, why not just go all out? Why not just go for it? Kind of like the donut did, which was really funny because the Gentleman's Roundtable, if you tuned in, their most recent recording, they were talking about Boston Scally caps, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the donut got brought up and it got, ran through the dirt, essentially. Most of them do not like the donut. I think me and Moose are actually the only two reviewers out there on YouTube at this time who have reviews on the donut. And I think Moose had said he only has worn that cap out once. But I actually wear that cap. I wear it to work a lot. And it's so funny because that cap really does get the most compliments out of any Boston Scally cap I wear. I don't know if it's because it's just so bizarre. People have to say something. And they're like, yeah, that cap's great. They don't know what else to say, maybe. Instead of, being rude and telling me it's hideous. But I really like it. And I really like this cap. I think this is a great cap. And not only did this cap come with the pin set, it also came with a dust bag here. So and I really like the drawstrings here, the gold drawstrings. I think that's a cool touch. But you do have the dude there. So of course that's what's on the inside of the cap as well. So a great collab. I do think that Boston Scally has dropped the ball on a few collabs. Chad, he goes on and on about how much he despises the Friday the 13th cap, the Jason Voorhees cap. I have that cap. I haven't done a review of that cap on this channel. I really like the pins on that cap. You have the Camp Crystal Lake pin is what I have on there. I just think that's really neat. It's a neat pin and it looks like a retro cap. So I'm really drawn to that cap. But I do get his point where if it didn't have the pins on it, you would have no idea that cap was based off Friday the 13th or had anything to do with Jason Voorhees in the slightest. So I'll give him that because I agree with that. But the cap itself, it's a single panel cap. I just like it. So back to the Big Lebowski cap. Another just really interesting collab from the Boston Scally Company. I know a lot of people kind of want Boston Scally to go back to a more simplistic approach with their caps. They feel like a lot of these collabs are just gimmicky, and I get that to an extent, but I also feel like nobody else out there is doing this. So I think it's a cool thing that they're doing with all these collabs. Of course, you know, they're a bigger company. They have the money to do this, to put these caps out. So why not? Because they have all the other caps too. But, you know, if they want to start making more simplistic caps again, great, I guess. I think they already have a lot of those. So just me personally, I have no desire to see a ton more of those produced. I would rather see things like this. Of course, that's just my personal opinion on Boston Scally Company. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rate the Big Lebowski cap here. So I do rate on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And despite my little criticism, my little nitpick about just kind of wanting, you know, the more interesting colors to be front and center, maybe here, I'm still giving this cap a 5 just because I'm so drawn to the retro look. And even without the pins, I think this cap just makes a statement. Some people might not like the statement that it's making, but for me, I just like I said, I just like the when caps look more interesting and really catch my eye, and this is one of those that certainly does that. So that is my review for the Big Lebowski cap from Boston Scally Company. So thank y'all so much for joining me today, and I do hope that y'all have a great rest of your day.